Thanks for staying with us. US President Donald Trump has been admitted to hospital with COVID-19. Now, doctors advised he be moved after developed a fever. He was admitted to hospital. Now, donning a mask, Trump was able to walk unassisted and board Marine One. He's being treated with an experimental antibody cocktail at the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. Doctors say he's doing well and does not need oxygen. The US president has downplayed the seriousness of the virus. He tweeted this video just before he was admitted.
I want to thank everybody for the tremendous support. I'm going to Walter Reed Hospital. I think I'm doing very well, but we're going to make sure that things work out. The First Lady is doing very well. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. I will never forget it. Thank you.
Well, downplaying the dangers of COVID-19 has been a major calling card for Donald Trump this year in the build-up to these elections.
Now, just earlier this week, Trump went as far as mocking his opponent, Joe Biden, for wearing a mask, and that was during the first presidential election debate. And in an unfortunate twist for him and his wife, Melania, they have now both contracted the virus, with Trump, as we just saw there, being admitted to hospital hours ago after developing a fever.
We can also report this morning his campaign manager has now also tested positive. With the elections just a few weeks away, so many questions about how this is going to affect his election campaign and, of course, potentially the outcome. Let's go over to international relations expert John Stremlau, who's joining us via Skype from Johannesburg.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Now, almost as soon as I saw news from major news outlets reporting that Donald Trump had tweeted that he had indeed tested positive for the coronavirus, there were even more messages on social media, some saying it's purely not true. Surely this is a Hail Mary from Trump because he saw what his numbers are doing in various polls. The question is, who's got more to gain and who's got more to lose out of this new development as we run ever closer to the presidential elections come the 3rd of November?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And of course, we offer our prayers and sympathy to Donald Trump and his wife and all the others who have tested positive. It does prove the point that no man is above the virus. Trump acts as though he's above the law sometimes, but this is some sort of a divine justice at this time. 1 month from today, the voting is supposed to be decisive, and I think Joseph Biden benefits from this substantially, even though he's playing very low key right now. But as you mentioned in your introduction, Trump was contemptuous of the mask and the basic social protocols that we practice here in South Africa at the very presidential debate this few days ago. And so now he won't have a second debate, and that lingers on with our memory, and I think will eat away at his base of support to some degree, although there's a hard core at the heart of that, which probably will engage in social media. But the social media noise makes all the more important the work that you at eNCA and other responsible journalists must do.
Professor, how does he now manage the fallout from this? Obviously, no one would wish COVID-19 on anybody, even the most staunch non-supporters of Donald Trump. But based on the rhetoric and the narrative he's had since the start of this pandemic, what does this do to his credibility? He at one point said this virus will simply just disappear. And now clearly he's been affected by this. How do you think it's going to affect his credibility?
Well, you know, he has no credibility. We've been enduring, and the Washington Post has been checking faithfully the 20,000 plus lies that falsehoods or exaggerations that he's engaged in. He doesn't seem to think that the truth matters. The truth does matter, especially in science. Even when we don't know the truth, we have to be honest about what we know and what we don't know. And it's been very painful sitting here in South Africa to reflect on how effective the Obama administration had been in raising the alert and responding quickly to Ebola, or how the CDC has always been for South African health scientists, as well as any others around the world, the go-to institution for at least some degree of scientific analysis, such as there existed at any time with regard to any disease. And that has been undermined under Donald Trump. This fabrications makes it suspect whatever he says, and so we have to look for evidence of where the truth lies, and his going to Walter Reed is an indication that he has contracted more of the virus than he wants us to believe. And at 74 and 110 kgs, he's overweight, obese, so that's a precondition. And he's among the 80% who in the U.S. died of this disease, that is, those over 65.
Now, President Donald Trump himself, obviously we all know that he puts a huge focus on the news cycle and what indeed is the major narrative in the news cycle of every given day. Now, before he announced that he and his wife had tested positive for the coronavirus, and he now finally calls it by its official scientific name after calling it the China virus for so long, some would say that this has taken the focus away from the debacle around his taxes that had just gone public through the New York Times, and of course his seeming support of white supremacy during that presidential debate on Tuesday. From where you're sitting, how should Joe Biden be playing this? Should he come out hard on Donald Trump and say, oh, look at him, he debunked wearing masks and social distancing, and now look what has happened? Or should he play the class he tacked? I saw some of his speech last night. He put a lot of focus on what the scientific approach should be to the country finally getting ahead of this virus. Which direction do you think he should be taking?
Well, you know, when all's said and done, Joe Biden, who is also in the vulnerable age cohort, has been extremely careful and a good example to the rest of us, as Cyril Ramaphosa is trying to be to the rest of us here in South Africa. And his low-key approach, Biden's, to this campaign, he, after all, didn't look like a viable candidate in the raucous primaries of the Democratic Party, and it was Jim Clyburn and the South Carolina African Americans who said, now wait a minute, this country needs stable leadership sensitive to the working class, and Joe Biden is the first highly receptive working class candidate in his run for president in a generation. And so I think his approach so far has proven to be very good, and the poll numbers indicate that. And he is the obvious beneficiary of this mess up by the White House that was a train wreck in progress of coming, and it's just amazing that it came on October 2nd. They always in America say there's an October surprise on the eve of an election, and this is it.
It's arrived. Surprise, by the way, for October. Professor, knowing everything that Donald Trump has said about COVID-19, these some 20,000 lies, and the timing of him contracting the virus, has COVID-19 cost him the presidency?
Well, we always said that it would, but now it's raised the ante. And, of course, we must not rush to judgment about how severe his case is. He could bounce back and prove to be healthy, but his credibility has taken a very serious knock. I think we'll know in the next week how serious this disease seems to be if medical reports out of Walter Reed can be believed. It used to be that that was not even raised as a question, but under the Trump administration, you don't know who or what to believe, as the journalists have proven repeatedly. We've had our own Abu Bangani in the New York Times making these revelations about his taxes, so that we have to wait and see. But on balance, this has made the virus the #1 issue in the U.S. presidential campaign, as frankly I think it should be. And let's get back to being a responsible state first, and then see what happens with regard to international relations and foreign policy.
Just before we let you go, Prof, does this put a little bit more focus now on the performance of the vice president candidacy? I think Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris have a debate coming up next week. If you look at how things could play out, if Donald Trump, for some health-related reasons, cannot continue with his campaign, it puts more focus on Mike Pence, etc., going forward. Do you think there's more focus now on that race as well?
Thank you very, very much for mentioning that. I had meant to mention it because even before Donald Trump was diagnosed as having the virus, I was saying to friends that I would not watch a second or third presidential debate. At least I wouldn't stay up till 3 a.m. to watch it. But I will definitely watch the debate between Mike Pence and Kamala Harris, which will be on the 3 a.m. on the 8th here and the 7th in the States. And Mike Pence is a Pentecostal evangelical Christian who represents the old America, make America great again, like Mike Pence. Kamala Harris is the America of the future, a country that belongs to all who live it, united in its diversity. And that is what is at stake in this election. And I think Kamala Harris, if she performs well in this debate, will at least give us a glimpse, it's early innings, of how America would look in the future. It will look more like Kamala Harris. And I think that's a better America.
John Stremlau, Professor John Stremlau, thank you very much for your time, international relations expert, joining us via Skype this morning. The 3rd of November, I've never been more excited about an American election than this one. I would love to see how Joe Biden is going to handle this. He's got to be so careful about not being callous, but also use the October surprise he's been handed.
And yet, at the same time, the Democrats over the last couple of elections have always been accused of being too soft and that the Republicans haven't played by the rules, and the Democrats always want to be seen as the classy bunch. So it'd be very interesting to see how they play it out. I always say to people, keep your Kardashians reality televisions. American politics for me is my reality television. I've got the popcorn out and I'm watching all of it.
We want to stop putting things into a diary.
Indeed.
It's 3rd of November. Still to come for you here on